Hey, Mitch.
Oh, hi, Ed. What's up?
Hey, I'm so excited about today's topic. I've got my Ralph Mouth t-shirt on. It's going to be fantastic.
Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. Ralph Mao.
Yeah,
Why,
w-
why do you have that on?
because we're talking about Donny Most. It's going to be so exciting.
God sakes. No, not Donnie Most.
Yeah,
Donnie.
Donny Most and his best friend Chachi. It's going to be amazing. I love that.
No, I said Johnny Quest and his best friend Haji.
What?
Not Johnny.
Haji?
Yes, the cartoon series from the 60s, the classic Johnny Quest.
But I've got a special guest lined up and everything.
I don't care if it's Bandit himself, Ed. We got to get the show going. Let's just start this thing.
All right. Sorry, Henry. Maybe we'll talk next time. Let's just start the show. Hi, this is Ed Dollister,
And this is Mitch Halleck.
and welcome to another exciting episode of Mitch and Ed's Excellent Adventure. If it's your first time here, thanks so much for joining us. If you are a regular viewer, thanks for coming back, and thank you to all our new subscribers. Hey, Mitch, how can you find out a little bit more about what we do before we get into today's topic?
Oh, Ed, it is easy as going on a top secret mission with your best friend, your dad, and his friend, and his strange little dog. All you have to do is hit the subscribe button below, and you too will be able to go on YouTube and watch Ed and I as we go on an excellent adventure back into the past to see TV, movies, and more right here on the Excellent Adventure. And hit the notification bell so you'll be notified when we go on another trip.
Hmm.
Where are we going today, Ed?
Well, we're heading a little bit out of our regular wheelhouse, which is usually, like the 70s and 80s. But we're heading back to 1964, 1965, and a fantastic show that I watched in reruns called Jonny Quest. Did you
Yes.
watch Jonny Quest when you were younger?
I did because it was actually created. I didn't realize this before I was even born in 1964 to 65, and it wasn't created till 66. So yeah, no, I saw it in
Not by
reruns.
Doug Wildley, I hope.
I don't know. I do bear a strange resemblance to him. I'm gonna have to talk to my mom. But oddly enough, my wife, who's a fan of the show as well, when I told her what we're about to discuss, that it was only one season,
Mm.
only 26 episodes. It was mind-boggling because everyone seems to have memories of Johnny Quest. And I'm not talking about the later revisions and the updated. I'm talking about the original Johnny Quest. So let's get into it, Ed. 26 episodes of fantastic fun from Hanna-Barbera.
Absolutely. And I think it was unlike a lot of TV or cartoon shows at the time. One, it was actually originally on in prime time that they put it
Yes.
on in um the first iteration of it, and then later on, a few years later, that's when it went into syndication, and I think
Yeah.
that's when everyone sort of remembers it from. But yeah, it only ran for one season. The reason why was it was super successful. It was
Yeah.
just too expensive to produce, and their idea was to put it on in syndication so it would make money. It was inspired by well, Doug Wildley was the creator, is credited as the creator of the cartoon series.
Mhm.
And what it was through Hanna-Barbera. Basically, what they were looking at was they wanted to create a movie like TV series that was in the style of the comic Terry and the Pirates. There was also a radio series called Jack Armstrong,
Yep.
which was this boy hero. And they actually did a test film of
Mhm.
Jack Armstrong. They didn't get the rights to it. You can actually see some of the animation tests from that test Jack Armstrong test film in the end credits.
Oh,
If you notice, you can have a look at some of those. But they thought, well, what can we do? So they went to Doug Wildley and said, can you create something? We want it like Terry and the Pirates, but also we want it a bit like Dr. No,
yeah, and James
which was
Bond.
the James Bond film of the time. And he went away and came up with the concept of Jonny Quest, which is
Mhm.
really about 11-year-old Jonny Quest and his father, Benton C. Quest, this high up scientist in the
Yep.
US government. He's accompanied by his bodyguard
Race
and friend, Race Bannon, Roger T. Race Bannon, who was actually based on the actor Jeff Chandler, the looks of Jeff Chandler.
Oh, I
So
did
there
not
you
know that.
go, from westerns and things like that. And he's also joined by Haji Singh, who is
Think-
his adopted brother, really. And he's
Yeah.
got his wonderful dog Bandit.
Yep.
And Bandit looks is called Bandit because he's got that wonderful like
Mm,
robber's sort of mask on. And the interesting thing, I suppose, with Jonny Quest was the animation was quite realistic
yeah.
in its tone. Bandit wasn't like Scooby Doo. He didn't talk. He could
No.
you could sort of felt like he could understand. He was a
Oh
bit
yeah.
like Rin Tin Tin or Lassie. He could understand sort of things a bit more than a regular dog could. But the animation was quite realistic. The violence was pretty,
Oh yeah.
realistic. And the design element, that wonderful 60s. If you think of what's that
Right.
current cartoon series that's out at the moment? Not Venture Brothers.
Yeah. Archer.
Archer, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
It's that sort of 1960s
Well,
aesthetic, of
it's
course.
funny you mentioned Venture Brothers really quick. There's a Johnny Quest tie-in
Mm,
because there's an older character on that show who's supposed to be the adult version of Johnny Quest. Did you
yes.
know? Yeah.
So it was a really good series. The
Mhm.
production design was fantastic. The voice acting was great. Tim
Music.
Matheson as Johnny Quest.
Yeah.
Now, most people of our age probably know Tim Matheson from Animal House or
1941,
1941.
Animal
And
House. Yeah.
and did you know that as an IndieCast link that Tim Matheson auditioned for Indiana Jones as
Indiana
well?
Jones. Yeah. In fact, if you watch the Disney special on Harrison Ford called Timeless Heroes, they have rare audition tapes of Sean Young and what's his name? Magnum PI there,
Yeah,
Tom
Tom
Selleck.
Selleck.
But they also show Tim Matheson and Karen Allen, actually.
Yeah, they
So
do.
yeah. Actually, Tim Matheson was on a lot of Hanna-Barbera stuff. He was their go-to guy because he also pops up on Space Ghost as the
Yes.
voice of thing, but not on Hercules. When we were talking about that, that was a
Motion
different character.
detected at front door.
Ooh, is Tim Matheson at the front door?
Come on in, Tim. I don't know.
Or is
Oops,
it Henry Winkler? He's
it
going,
might be Winkler. I don't know.
Mitch.
Maybe it's Bandit. Going back to Bandit real quick. I don't know why, but I thought Bandit was a bulldog,
He
but
looks like a bulldog, but he's not supposed to be
not
a bulldog.
really. No, he's got somewhat of a bulldog look, but if you get into it, the features aren't exactly there. It's just like a random made up dog for the show. But
Yep.
did I gotta ask real quick? Did they ever mention what happened to Mrs. Quest? Is it like
No,
Bonanza
you just
where
know
we don't
that
talk about?
she had passed away, and maybe that's when Race saw his moved in. I don't know. They were pretty
I
progressive back
don't know.
then.
It's just kind of like I watched the show and you're like, it's like Bonanza, which was a show, a big hit, and there was like four brothers
Yes.
and a father, Lauren Green. But they must have had different mothers because none of these kids looked alike. And you're like, wait a minute, there's Hoss, there's Candy, there's Little Joe, and then there's another guy, and you're like, I don't know what's happening here. But
No,
anyway,
they you just know that she had passed away, but
well, yeah.
you don't know why. And that, you know what, that's sometimes good. You know, when they over explain things, you don't need
Yeah,
to know
like you
everything.
never know what happened to the Brady Bunch's other family. Like what happened to the first
What
husband? I
happened to
think
cousin Oliver? Is he buried in the under the patio? You never know.
Chuck Cunningham. There's
Chuck
something
Connors.
you
Chuck
just don't know.
Connors.
Chuck Connors, that's another guy. No, but you know what's thing? I watched this as a kid, and I got to tell you, I was kind of a wimp as a kid because I was frightened of a lot of Johnny Quest episodes. They were a little bit more mature
Mm,
than your average Banana Splits episode or even the Herculoids, which we already talked about, one of our more popular
mhm.
episodes. But this one, I mean, you want to talk about violence, that would never play today because a lot of the bad guys come to some grisly ends on the show. There's one episode where it's about like werewolves and the guy's pretending that there's like wolf people or something like that. And in the end of the episode, done in silhouette, the bad guy's running in the woods and you see like one of these wolf things come out and just shred him. You're like, holy Christ, that guy just got eaten by a wolf on the
Yep.
show. A
People
lot of
get shot,
explosions.
people get
No.
exploded.
They don't get shot. If you ever notice that Race always seems above, like if there's like a rock, a mountain,
Oh
but
yes.
near the guy, he'll hit the mountain and an avalanche will crush the guy.
Well,
It won't
yeah.
be. He doesn't do the killing shot. It's nature that kind of takes it out. So there's even the boys get involved in some like murder, but they kind of soft play. But no, it was always exciting. But real quick, I mentioned to you the music when you were talking about all the stuff on it. The story I heard is Joe Barbera went to the networks and they said, what do you got? What could you come up with? And he did what we would call a sizzle reel today, which
Mhm.
was only like a couple minutes of scenes,
Yep.
no story, no dialogue or anything like that. And they took the Doug Wiley stuff, and it's basically the opening sequences where you see the mechanical spider walking
Oh
and their
yes, and the
jetpacks
Frogman
and
and yep.
yeah, it was just all out action, and they had that music playing, that crazy 60s fast bongo music, almost like
Yeah.
a Matt Helm and all that. It was just of its time, that hip beatnik kind of
Mhm.
sound. And they just showed that to the network execs. I think it was at ABC. And they said, sure, let's go, go make that. And they're like, oh, okay. Now we got to come up with it.
Yep.
And you're right. Like it only lasted one season, ran in prime time. And the stories were I like I said, they were not your typical Saturday morning. Maybe they were going for an older audience because you could be a parent who might like James Bond and Sean Connery movies and watch it and say, well, it's not just a cartoon. And you
Mhm.
could be a little kid and picture that you're Johnny or Haji
Mhm.
and go, oh wow, this is awesome. Like the Hardy Boys kicking ass. You know what I mean? It was really, really cool stuff. But yeah,
It was a sort of a mix of adventure and a bit of sci-fi or 60s sci-fi. It was originally pitched as what would maybe the technology or what would be around in the 1970s, so 10 years
yeah. Yeah.
hence.
We never had jetpacks, I'm sorry to say, or
Still no.
great
I know jetpacks
men.
are cool, aren't they?
Aren't they? But they're always these big ass things when you
I
see them. They
know.
look like the size of a truck, and the
Yeah,
guy's like,
they're not
holy,
like Boba Fett
they're
there,
not
you
like
know.
Boba
They
Fett's
need
at all. No, they're always this massive engine that's strapped to some guy's back. But
absolutely correct. But it's great, and each episode was a self uh
self-contained story. Yeah.
contained episode, but they did have a main villain, Dr.
Yeah.
Zinn, sorry,
Yeah.
the evil, not crime lord, but scientist,
Yeah.
everything. Sort
It
of
was
like
like
Dr. No.
Blofeld. It was like
Yeah,
those megalomaniacs that they had in the 60s that would show up. They always want to take over the world, and they had these
yes.
crazy devices or bombs or whatever it was going to do to wipe somebody out. But
And again, yeah, the one thing that sticks in my mind is that
yeah,
spider robot.
the
It was so
spider
simple.
robot and the arm. I always remember I think it's the first episode. Is it the lizard men or
Yes.
rubber suits or something? The guy frogmen or something like
Yep.
that. I think they were called lizard people.
Yep.
And there was this creepy because you're like, what is that? But it turns out to be it was just guys in suits or something like that. But
So as we said, it was a really popular
I
series.
gotta
So I
ask
thought,
though, did
yeah,
it was popular and then it went into syndication, but did it inspire a lot of toys? Because
there were so at the time, we'll talk about modern toys and things like that in
yeah,
a moment. But at the time, there were, the good old coloring books. There was some comics. There
puzzles
was a board
probably.
game.
Okay.
After many years, in 1986, there was the New Adventures of
Yeah,
Jonny Quest, which is
I saw
actually
them.
not a bad show either. It's not
No,
as good as the original,
right.
but it doesn't shy away from, it's a bit more adult than I think
Yeah.
than the cartoons of the time. So there was that, and then in 19, I think it was like 1997,
90, yeah.
1996, there was
That's
the
yeah.
Real Adventures of Jonny
Is that
Quest.
that CGI kind of one?
Yeah, which wasn't as good. So
No, it wasn't at all. No.
but those the New Adventures, the '86 version. I think Galoo brought out some action figures based on those, but they weren't as the classics. But there was McFarlane Toys. I think brought out
Oh yeah?
like a not a maquette, but a sort of a scene of Jonny Quest with a attacking like a dragon.
Yeah.
Um, Funko Pop brought out
Oh,
you can get Jonny Quest and Bandit, and you can get Haji as
oh, that's cool.
as pop vinyls, and you can pick them up for about $20 each, or
Oh.
probably what.
Oh, I was gonna say real quick, I think they did a comic like in the 60s, like Gold
Yes.
Key Dell did a comic of that because I know DC Comics, we talked about it in the Herculoids. They just did a series about a couple years ago called Future Quest, where they
Yes.
had all the characters from the Hanna-Barbera adventure shows, the Herculoids and Space Ghost, and of course Johnny Quest, all teamed up on this epic adventure and such. So I know that. And there was a series from Comico, Comico, that
Mhm.
ran in the 80s. and it had so many great comic book artists and writers on the book because I think everybody grew up with it and they were such a fan of the series. Everybody jumped on it because you go to look at these comic books, they don't go for a lot of money.
Mm.
But the Johnny Quest series, I think it was uh the, the writer's name is William Loeb. He worked on a lot of Wonder Woman comics, but he was the primary writer on this thing. But they had some great covers, some great art on it. Alex Ross, who's like the famous DC Comics and Marvel
Hmm.
Comics artist, very well known. I think he did some of the covers as well. Might have been Dave Stevens, if I think the guy that did the Rocketeer. It's just the covers alone are
Yep.
great to go find these things. So there was a Johnny Quest comic book that ran for quite some time in the 80s or so. I think you can still find those.
It's
What was I going to say about toys though? It's one of those things I can't imagine why they just didn't have a whole series.
I'm surprised that
G.I.
Super
Joe,
7 hasn't made like Johnny Quest action figures, those retro
right?
style action figures.
Yeah, I mean, it just writes itself. And
Mm.
the weirder thing is about Race Bannon. If you actually watch The Simpsons, he shows up on The Simpsons of all things. When Homer went into the space program, he was there. It's like, oh, that's kind of a weird crossover.
Well, I know on the Late Show with Stephen Colbert, whenever they do an animated Mike Pence, they always
Yeah,
use
he
Race
does.
Bannon.
He's got
So
that weird plastic white hair,
that's right.
like kind of like this. But anyway, he was always the man of action or so. But yeah, it was why there's not a live action movie of this, I don't know.
I do not understand, or an animated series, that or a CG movie or something like that, because
Yeah,
it
yeah.
stylistically, the
Right?
action and adventure was fantastic.
I know.
They should set it in the 19s, when it was originally
Like
set.
60s. Yeah, kind of like an Austin Powers type of thing,
Yeah,
Yeah,
it would be fantastic. Warner Brother, not Warner Brothers. I'm thinking of the Warner Brothers archive, but
yeah,
they did bring it out on Blu-ray, so you can get the original series, and I
yeah.
think the new adventures as well on physical media, which is great. But there's
Are
a
they
few
running
episodes on
currently?
YouTube. Sorry.
Can you find them now? Are they on like HBO Max or any of that
I
stuff?
haven't been able to, certainly not in Australia. They're
Um,
not available. Maybe where you are watching this right now, but there are a few episodes on
YouTube.
YouTube as well. But
Mhm.
it's great just to watch that. Yeah, it just evokes so many memories when I was going back
Well,
and
then
watching that
you know what the
opening.
funny thing is? Hanna-Barbera made like a nice little library of audio because you'll hear clips. You'll go to watch those and you'll hear like
Yeah,
you'll hear like a sound effect of a laser beam or a gun or there's always that hawk.
yeah.
Then you'll hear it on the Herculoid, you'll hear it on Space Ghost. They must have said, okay, these are ours because they've reused them so many times. And then the music, the only thing I noticed about Johnny Quest is sometimes it got a little bit like they would be running. It was good animation for its time, but sometimes they'd have like the repetitive background and
Oh
you
yes.
running and you hear the bongos like that's the action cue, like they're moving fast. But it is a very classic show. And like I said, I'm so surprised when we did the research that it was only one season and 26 episodes because everybody I know knows that show. And it just seemed like it was always on, like it was on
Mm.
like 20 years. And it's like, no,
Well,
that's
I
it.
believe in the America, it was one of the rare shows that was on every network at
Yeah.
one point.
Yeah.
And then it got into syndication. And I think, when you're young, when you're a kid, you're
You
watching
don't
one of
know.
these going,
Yeah.
oh, wow, this is like a movie, the whole, 20-minute episode. So
Yeah.
26 episodes of that is, pretty amazing.
I
So
was going to ask you too, did they ever meet Scooby Doo? You mentioned Scooby Doo because they always do these like
mm,
retro
they
episodes like
do. I
Scooby
don't.
Doo meets Batman or something like that.
Oh,
Johnny
yeah,
Quest never
that's
came
right.
back
Johnny Quest meets the Harlem Globetrotters. I don't know.
or Gilligan's
If, you know
Island.
what? If they did, I'll put it up right now.
All right. So that's a great look back at Johnny Quest. I feel like going out and watching some right now after this episode.
Well, absolutely. You can, yeah, go on eBay, get the DVD or Blu-ray, and that way you've got it forever at least till DVD rot sets in. But at least you've got it. It's hard to
Yes.
find some of these classic shows on streaming. You know what else it's hard to find?
Us?
Yes. So how can you find out about us?
Well, Ed, you should join our legion of dedicated viewers, just like Johnny Quest people, and hit the subscribe button below. And you too could be part of the Mitch and Ed army as we go marching back into the past and grabbing some of that gold and bringing it back to the forefront and remembering what it was like to be a kid and growing up with some of the greatest shows and movies of all time right here on our excellent adventure. Hit the notification bell. You'll know when Haji, Bandit, and Ed and I go out there looking for
or
treasure.
Chachi.
I'm not Chachi. But anyway,
Yeah.
that's it. And you know what? Hit the like button because you know why? It makes us feel all warm and fuzzy
It
inside.
does. And
I'm fuzzy on
those
that.
people who hit the, the unlike, just let us know
There,
why. What how can we
there's some people
improve?
that do that.
Yeah, that's all right.
I got a list of names and I'm coming for you.
All right. Well, I'm going to put on some Jonny Quest, get myself a bowl of Cheerios, and think it's like Saturday morning again.
Yeah.
Signing off for another exciting episode of Mitch and Ed's Excellent Adventure. This is Ed Dollister.
This is Race Mitch Halleck.
Ooh, you do have a bit of that. You need a polo neck.
I know. I
That's
was
what you
thinking I
need.
need a
You need a
turtleneck and a
skivvy.
red shirt and a white shirt.
That's right.
I got to
And
do
we'll
the.
see you. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.